So let's just pull up Xcode. Guys should all know the drill by now, but we'll just go through that. We'll be doing this every lecture. It's okay. And yeah, usually window might pop up, or you just go to new project, right? Just wait for my computer. New single view application, but we are going to create multi-view, except not through Storyboard. So I'm going to call this L3, and then I'm going to click Next. I'm going to put this in my desktop. So I'm going through this kind of fast because I assume you guys kind of should know the, the way it works now, but let me know if I'm going too fast. Anyways, I'm going to delete the storyboard as usual because we don't do storyboards. I'm going to move it to trash, and then I'm going to go to info plist, delete the storyboard key. So now I'm going to go to app delegate, and now I'm going to make this bigger so you guys can actually see and not squint. Okay, so now I'm in app delegate. So is everyone here? Did I go too fast? I may have gone too fast. Yeah, if you guys need help just setting that up, just raise your hand. Either like Mindy, Kevin, Austin, anyone can help set you up. But yeah, so I'm gonna move on. So yeah, so now we're gonna work. Now I'm gonna just put the regular boilerplate code that you guys should have done for the grocery store. So right, we're in app delegate, so now we just need to fill in instantiate our window. So I'm going to do self.window equals UI window. Do frame, I'm going to make it the size of the screen because that's our screen size. And I'm going to do self.window. I'm going to set its root view controller. So this time I'm not actually going to instantiate a view controller. I'm going to instantiate a navigation controller because I want to kind of use a navigation controller to push on different views and basically to have a multi-screen application. So that's why I'm going to have the view controller be a navigation controller. And then within the navigation controller, it also has a root view controller. So that's kind of like the first view controller on the stack. And so they need you to specify that, else like what are they going to show? So I'm just going to put view controller and then just put double parentheses to say I'm instantiating a view controller. And then I'm going to do self.window and make key invisible so we can actually see it. So that's that. Does anyone want me to keep this up? Could possibly move. Okay. Yeah. So I will just wait a second. Typed a little fast. So. Okay, is everyone okay now? Okay, I'll wait. Sorry. Okay, so everyone should be good. If you guys are not good, you can definitely ask one of the TAs. They can definitely set you up with this boilerplate code. Anyways, let's just move on to, okay, so this is just a shortcut because I just want to keep the sidebar out of the way so you guys can have more screen to see my code. So I'm just going to go on to the Viewcontroller class. If you guys care about the shortcut, it's Command-Shift-O, and just like type in the file that you want to see. It's pretty nice. Yeah, so now we have a view controller, and in this view controller, I'm going to have two buttons, and so for each button, I'm going will represent a different way to present another view controller. So, and right now I will create the 2 buttons. So at the top, I'm going to say Modal Button, UI Button. So this button is going to present a view controller modally. So that's going to come up from the top, like I showed you in the slide. And I'm also going to push button. So this one's going to actually use a navigation controller. Yeah, I use the navigation controller to show views. So, and then one thing I'm just going to do just to make, because I just like white backgrounds, I'm just going to make the view white, so I just think it's nicer than black. And then I'm going to actually instantiate the buttons. So modal button equals UI button. And I'm going to create it of, so here's kind of some of you guys, I noticed on Piazza, we're using frame. So this is what I was talking about for frame-based layout. If you want to do frame-based layout, you would actually specify the frame. And I'm going to show you, you guys don't want to type this anyways though, because we're not going to do this, but I just want to show you how frames work. You'd specify the frame, and then here you'd specify the points. So I would specify the x-axis, the y-axis, and then how wide I want it to be, so how tall I want it to be. So from just looking at it, it's quite similar. It can be quite similar to auto layout, right? Minus the x and y, you can specify in auto layout the width and the height. But with frames, you're specifying coordinate positions, hence the x and y, versus auto layout, you're specifying relatives. So that's just something I just want to briefly go over. But I'm not actually going to use a frame. What I am going to use, is going to use a default button type, because I don't really want to style my button that much in this demo. I just want to use the default one. And the system, I'm going to use the system. And because of type inference, I don't actually need to specify that it's of a UI. It's an enum UI button type. I'm just going to delete that. That's because you should be passing in enums. So it's a nice thing about Swift. And then I'm going to type in some just styling. So I'm going to just set the title. And I'm going to have this button just say present modally. And then it's going to be for .normal, because it's just the normal state that you see a button in. Is usually just in normal state. And then I'm going to do modal.add target. And so by adding target, what I want to do basically is add a, I want to add an action associated with the button. When I press this button, I want some method to be called. Because I mean, essentially that's what a button should do, right? It should do an action. So target is kind of the way you do that. So for the target, I'm going to specify self, as in this view controller. So basically what I'm saying is I'm going to add the function that's going to call, that this button is going to call when it gets pressed. I'm going to add it within this view controller. So that's why I'm going to put self. And then selector kind of specifies the action or the method. And I'm just going to write the method. I haven't obviously written the method in this view controller, but I'm just going to write what I want this method to be, and I'm going to call it modal button pressed. And then, and for a specific, I want to do it for a specific kind of touch, and then the touch that you want is touch up inside. There's different touches, and you can definitely look on the Swift Apple documentation as to what each one means, but usually the normal touch is touch up inside, and then there's obviously, hopefully not a problem. Okay, it's not a problem. And then last but not least, since we are using auto layout constraints, guys, what should I do? Anyone know what? If you're using auto layout, what do I need to set before I even start doing auto layout? Yeah. I mean, no one ever remembers what it is. I don't even know. So, but it's fine. You just write it in and just fills it out for you. So it's great. But yeah, that's exactly it. You guys definitely should remember that. I sometimes forget that too, and then I'm like, oh wait, why isn't it working? And I go to WTF auto layout, and it's like, oh, you forgot that, and it's like, oh, that was a little stupid, but it's okay, it happens. So let's go to the next button. Let's set that up, and then I will take questions. Maybe I will take questions after a certain point. I just want to get through this a little bit, and then we can, in case anyone has any questions. So yeah, let's go. So I'm just going to do the same thing, basically. Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. In fact, it's so similar, I'm just going to copy and paste this to be faster. And I'm just going to replace it with push button, and then instead of, but I don't want the the title of the push button to say the same thing as the modal button because that's confusing. So I'm gonna say push onto navigation stat, and then I wanna have push button pressed. I don't want the two buttons called the same function, right? So I'm just gonna change that. And then yeah, so everything else should be fine. I don't know why it's giving me red, but it's okay. Oh yeah. So I need to implement selector function. But anyways, are you guys okay? Am I going too fast? I think I'm okay. Okay, so I'm gonna keep going, but does anyone have any questions? No. Okay, good. Questions are good, but let's go to, and I'm just gonna, before I'm just gonna add them to the subview because I kind of know I want to add them so they show up, and then so let's do push button. Okay, and then okay, so set up, and then obviously I'm gonna also set up the constraints. So and I'm gonna do that right here. So I'm gonna have a private func called setup constraints. And sometimes I like to name my functions private just because it kind of distinguishes, like, though this is an internal function versus like an external function. And I'm not going to write the constraints in because before I forget, I actually want to call setup constraints. So I definitely see myself forgetting, and then it's not going to show up. Great, some great debugging happening live. So yeah, so that's like so I'll write my constraints in right now. So let me do that. So just like the same old, we did last lecture. So you guys probably did in the project as well. So you guys should be familiar with this. All you gotta do is nslayout.constraint, and then you do activate, right? Because you want to activate these constraints so they're actually in place and being used. So first one I'm going to do is the modal button. So I want to, if I want to center it, so I'm going to just type in the first thing, but I'm going to do constraint equal to, I'm going to center it in the view.center x anchor. Yeah, so I'm going to center it. So I'm going to just center the modal button horizontally within the view. And then also I wanted to put it at 16 pixels from the top of the view. So I'm going to do top anchor, right? Constraint. And then, so what do you guys think I should do? Oh, I also forgot a constant. Let me just write that. Oh, I guess I could have done a comma. No. Oh yeah, you're right. And sometimes things just don't pop up. Sad. Let me do constraint equal to, and then just go down. Yeah, so this one. So what do you guys think if I want it to be 16 pixels from the top? What should I put as my layout thing? Hint, safe area, because we don't want to just like put it, at the very top. It might not look good for iPhone 10. So does anyone know? Oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah, perfect. So yes, so it would be, yeah, safe area layout guide, and then you do like top anchor, and then I want a constant of 16. Keep it, just do 8, kind of multiples of 8, because that's just something you kind of see in iOS a lot. I mean, I could have done 20 or 15. Doesn't quite matter. It's gonna be conventional, I suppose. So and then we're just gonna go out and activate the other constraints for the other button. So same old thing. And actually, it's quite so similar. I'm just gonna copy and paste it again for the sake of time. Oops. And I'm just gonna replace it with push button. And then I'm going to do push button, except for the top anchor, right? I want to align it with the bottom edge of the modal button, because I just basically want the modal button to be first and the push button be below that. So yeah, so I want to do push button, sorry, not push button, it's modal button. Modal button dot bottom anchor, and then I just want it to be kind of 8 pixels away, just because I just want it to be a little closer. So that's just like the constraints. And then you guys probably also have red on your screen as well from this, right? Because I said that my Viewcontroller was going to implement this function, but it's not, so I can't find it. So that's why we got red. So to kind of get rid of that, I'm going to implement those two functions. So the first function, right, I call it Modal Button Pressed. Just going to copy that to not type, and I'm just going to call it funct Modal Button Pressed. And so kind of like the function that kind of gets called with buttons, they usually come with a sender. So it's kind of, so what a sender is, it's like the button that got pressed is the button that's in this parameter that gets sent along. And I mean, yeah, so that's kind of like what this means. It's just like, this is what a typical like target function looks like. And I think I also need to add in Objective-C, so that's for some other reasons, but I won't get into that, but just listen to your compiler sometimes. Yeah, and then obviously I'll do the same thing for the push button pressed. So, and you notice I haven't actually implemented these functions, but I will do that. So that's, yeah, so those are two functions. So basically these functions will get called. And kind of to show you guys or prove to you guys that this function gets called, I'm going to have some print statements. And then we're going to run the app. Yes.
You have to say sender UI button, because for the last project I did, I didn't do that in the work.
Oh yeah, you like don't have to. I guess I just do it out of convention. Because yeah, you don't really have to, because usually you're not really referring to the button that called it, but it is an option. Like, you can put that as a parameter. It will be filled in.
Yeah, like usually if you have multiple buttons that point to the same functions, it's nice to pass in the button too. So say you want to change like the button color that was pressed, like then you could do sender dot background color equals. But yeah, you don't have to do it.
Okay, now we wait. Hopefully things show up. Do I not? Let's see. Okay, it did show up. Okay, cool. I wonder why it's kind of blurry. But anyway, so that's kind of what you guys should see. Does everyone see that? Hopefully. If not, please call over one of our TAs. And to kind of prove to you guys that like this function actually does get called. It's not just like me writing random code. Like, right? Like if I press this button, the modal button, this function, this function that I wrote gets called. So I'm just going to show you again. Press that, right? It gets called. Every time I press the button, the target function gets called. So that's kind of like, yeah, how buttons work and how you can add actions to a button. And for this case, right, I want to actually present different view controllers. So like when I press on the modal button, I want it to present a view control modally, and then I want to press on the navigation one, I want to present it to the navigation controllers. So, but to do that, I'm going to actually have to have other view controllers to present, right, guys? So I'm going to create those view controllers by going to File, New, and then File. I'm going to make sure you have Cocoa Touch class highlighted, and I'm going to click Next. And then you want to have a subclass of UI view controller because we're creating another view controller. And I'm going to call this one Modal view controller because this one will be the one that I present modally. And so I'll click Next, create it, and yes, and we have that. And to kind of just distinguish that it's a different view controller, let me just skip to my modal code. I'm gonna make it view.background color equals .blue. Yeah, so that's like to just kind of prove to you that it's a modal view controller. When we see it, like I'll make the background blue, and then I'm going to go to File, New, and I'm going to create new file. I'm going to create another view controller class for the navigation one. So make sure you have Cocoa Touch class highlighted, click Next, right? Make sure it's subclass of UI view controller, and then I'm going to call it nav view controller because it's going to be presenting using the navigation controller. And I'm going to click Next, I'm going to click Create, and then I'm going to make the background color, the view's background color dot red. Okay, and then I'm gonna go back to my view controller, and actually like present those view controllers that I just made. So I'm gonna go for the modal button pressed, like the way that you just create or present things modally is that just call present. So here. So, okay, yes, good point. Okay, so to kind of like create a new view controller, you guys just gotta go to File, New, and then File.
So Monica is like creating a new screen, for example. This is how you do it via files.
Yes. And then you would click Next, and then make sure you write that it's a subclass of UI view controller. That's very important. And then name it whatever you want. I named mine's like modal view controller for the modal one, and then for the nav one, I named it nav view controller. And then you just want to like, and since I already created those, I'm going to just call it testing view controller. And then you just kind of click next, and then you click create. Just make sure that's in your project directory, which it usually is. Yeah, so that's kind of how you do it. So is everyone okay? I may be going a little fast because I do feel like I'm a little behind on time, but I definitely want you guys to understand this. So, is everyone okay? Like, everyone caught up? I'll just move this to trash. Yeah, okay. Okay, maybe I'll try and slow down, even though I want to get through everything, but yeah, sometimes you just stuff too many things in a lecture. Okay, so now back to present, like back to like modally. So kind of like the way you do it, since you're just like presenting it on top of the view controller, you don't really need to call like anything. You don't need to call a navigation controller. You just like the view controller like kind of just has within it a function called present. You can see that right here. It's called this. It's this one, and you just click that one, and you can just write in the view controller that you want to present. And so I want to present modally my modal view controller. So I just get the modal view controller, and then I put the don't forget the double parentheses to kind of indicate like I'm instantiating this view controller. And then you want to just do true, and then you don't really want to do anything after the view controller is presented, so you just put nil. So that's how you present modally, and then I'm gonna present. I want to present the other view controller, the nav view controller, through when someone presses the push button. So the way I do that is I first have to create an instance of the nav view controller. Navigation. No, I called it nav view controller. Okay, and then I'm gonna put a double parentheses to indicate that I'm instantiating this view controller, and then I'm gonna call like every like view controller, right? Since we so every view controller has a property called navigation controller, and it's like an optional property because you may or may not have your view controller in a navigation controller, right? But we know that that this view controller is within a navigation controller because like we put it in one, right? In app delegate, we said UI navigation controllers root view controllers this view controller. So I know. So that's why. So I'm going to write this, right? So this is the variable I'm talking about, navigation controller. So I know that this navigation controller is not going to be nil, and in fact, I want to present or push a view controller using that. So push something on top of this navigation controller. So I'm gonna stuff looking kind of weird, and then I'm gonna put in the nav VC, and then I put true. So yeah, does that make sense? Yeah.
Why did you have to create nav VC first? Couldn't you do the same thing you did last time on screen?
Yeah, I could have. I just did it because hopefully I get time in this lecture where I like modify something of this view controller before I push it. So that's why I did it. But yeah, you can certainly do it the other way. Okay, so and to kind of show that's working, I'm going to actually run this, and so you guys can see like what does that look like. So like, okay, so let's go. So I'm gonna press this button, right? I'm gonna present modally, and what do you know? It like presents modally. Except, you guys, what is the problem here, or how do we get back to this other view? Yeah, we can't. So that's the problem. It's okay. We're gonna fix that. But if you guys want to see the other one, I'm just gonna run it again, and then we'll fix the problem. But I just wanted to show you guys that it actually works. Before we start doing it. But okay, so now I'm going to click push onto navigation stack. And you see that it pushes on kind of like with that navigation controller transition. And conveniently, we have a back button. That's so nice, so we can go back. So we're not stuck. But yeah, this is like, and you kind of know it's like being like in a navigation controller, and this is being presented like through a navigation controller, right? Because it's coming to the side, and you've also got that nav bar. So that's that. But let's fix that problem with the Modal View Controller. So, so going into the Modal View Controller class, I am going to add a dismiss button because, yeah, as you can see, that's clearly a usability problem if you can't actually get out of the view once you're in it. That'd be very frustrating. So I'm going to create a dismiss button called dismiss button, and I'm going to make it a UI button. And this exclamation mark is just saying like I will ensure that when I use this button that it's actually instantiated. So I'm going to do dismiss button. I'm going to instantiate it before I even use it, as my exclamation mark says I must. And I'm going to do the same old thing that you did for every button is like, say, I'm going to call this button, set the title right, I'm going to call it dismiss Viewcontroller. And I'm going to do it for normal. I'm going to do dismiss button dot add target. Yeah, it's up here. Self, and then I'm going to do specify selector that I haven't written, but I'm going to write, and it's going to be called dismiss button pressed. And then I'm going to be calling for touch up inside because that's kind of like the touch that you want. And then for constraints, mustn't forget this, everybody. Translate to auto resizing mask into constraints. Gonna set that to false. And then, so just to kind of like again go over what target is, I'm saying that I want the target to be kind of like my view controller, and then I want the action to be called, the method that my view controller will implement, and that my button will call when it's pressed. It's going to be called dismiss button pressed. It's going to be for touch up inside. And then so I can actually see my dismiss button, I'm going to add to subview, and then I'm also going to add the constraints. I'm just going to do it directly within viewed load, just because it's just one thing. But usually, if you have multiple elements, definitely like make it a separate function so it reads better. It's just cleaner code to have like shorter, more modularized functions. So, yeah. So then I'm gonna like kind of lay out the same way I did the other buttons. So center X, dot constraint. That's not what I wanted because I wasn't looking. It's the equal one, just the regular equal, because I wanted to actually center it, as the other ones to the center X anchor. And then I also need to specify like horizontally, like where is it, right? So I'm going to do top anchor dot constraint and equal to. And remember, right, guys, it's safe area layout guide. You can certainly do you don't have to do the safe area layout guide, but it's definitely going to look better and make your app look a whole lot better for the iPhone X and the regular iPhone. So definitely remember to use a safe layout guide. And then yes, yep, I forgot that. And 16, I'm gonna add a constant of 16, just traditional 16. Yeah, and then so the only thing I'm missing, right, is as you can see it's red because I said oh, my view controller is going to implement this action and this is the action that's going to get called, and my compiler's like, oh, I don't see that function, so we got to write it. So let's go. So I'm just going to write Objective-C. It's just and do dismiss button pressed. Add in the sender. It's not really necessary. I don't actually have to add it because I'm not really using it, but just gonna do it for tradition's sake. And within here, right? So how you kind of like dismiss a button is kind of cool. Like, you don't really need to like call anything. You just like Viewcontroller will just have this method within it. It's just called dismiss, just like how just kind of like how you could just present the Viewcontroller without like calling it on anything, like without calling it on navigation controller. You just sort of just do that with dismissals of Viewcontrollers. So yeah, so you just call it dismiss. It's like that easy, and hopefully everything works because I'm going to run it right now, except there's a problem. Yeah, so obviously I made a typo. I'm just gonna copy and paste. Oh, that's like 2, 3 S's. Okay, so yeah. Does anyone have any questions? General. Okay. Yeah. So let's see how it goes. So when we present modally, right, we see this button, and if I click on it, bam, it's gone. So no usability impediments here. So yeah, that's kind of like, you know, how we would do different view controllers, right? So with modally, so I'm just gonna go back to the regular view controller. Actually, yeah, so that's kind of how we do it, right? We present for modal, and then we push onto the navigation controller stack for navigation wise. Yeah, and so there's like 10 minutes left. I wish about 12 minutes left. Okay, so something I wanted to talk about and probably run into the end of lecture, but it's pretty important, and you guys should this is definitely important, and I wish I had more time, but I don't have enough time. So something I want to talk about is delegation. So now you've kind of saw with my demo, right, how to show different, like how to have different like multiple views, like, or multiple view controllers within one app, which is really great. But then there's also like, right now that you can have different views, right, sometimes the same view, right, view controller might share the same information. Like, you can think of just like a profile example, like, you know, usually like you might just see your profile, like maybe like just even like the contacts, right, like you might see your contact, and then you want to edit it, so then another screen might pop up, and you just edit the fields in there, and then you click save, and that screen gets dismissed, right? And then the view controller underneath it has like the updated like contact information. Contacts doesn't work like that anymore, but that's kind of like what I'm talking about is, you know, how do I pass in information? Like maybe a user typed in a text field in like one view controller, and then they said like, I want to save that. Like, how do I pass that back to the view controller that actually displays all that information? So that's like what delegation is. You can kind of see this in an example, like with Reminders app, right? It's a very simple thing of delegation, but I have this edit view controller, and then when I click done, right, my other view controller like updates. So this is like a case of so this is a case of having two view controllers, and you need to like communicate between them. So kind of like how we solve the problem with that is having the child view controller. So the child view controller is the one that gets like presented, and usually the one where you edit the field, whereas the parent view controller is the one that usually like displays the information. So what basically we have is that the child view controller has a reference to the parent view controller. And then when the child view controller, like when someone presses the done button, right, the child view controller can register that because it's on its view controller, and it'll tell the parent like, oh, somebody pressed the done button, here's the text you should update yourself with. So that's kind of how it works. And then we use a protocol to kind of specify that communication. So are you guys familiar with interfaces? A little bit. I don't know if that's in 11.10. I know 21.10 talks about it. I think we've talked about interfaces. So, yeah. So basically, like, kind of what a protocol and interface is just a contract basically it's saying like in our interface or protocol, you will kind of write out the methods that somebody who implements this interface will like write out, and that's kind of how we specify how the child and view controller and the parent view controller communicate. We're gonna write this protocol or basically write this contract and basically say that like, oh, like the parent view controller, right, is gonna follow these protocols, and so I know I can call this method within the parent view controller. And kind of like the reason why we do this and not just like, why don't you just call the parent view controller directly? Why don't you just access it directly? Is to kind of modularize things and make things like encapsulate certain things, right? Because the child view controller shouldn't be able to edit everything in a parent view controller. Like that would be way too much power, and like, you know, in case the child view controller or might access like the wrong thing, something that's private or secure to that other view controller, right? So we just kind of want to control the access is basically what delegation is. So that's like all great words, but I will show you exactly what I mean in hopefully 8 minutes. So yeah, so let's let me start off with let me start off with actually adding a text field. Well, I might have to go a little fast for this. So if you guys fall behind, it's okay. I will upload all this code, but it's just a lot of like setup code that just like takes a long time, and it's not that. I mean, I'm sure like the setup code is not that important. I never even got. Okay, so I'm gonna do text field. So I'm gonna like basically I'm gonna have a field within the nav view control. So the nav view control is that red view control that you saw. It's like gets pushed into the stack. And I'm gonna add a text field that someone can modify. And then I'm gonna also add a save button. I don't know if this is gonna happen. And then I'm gonna add a save button, and basically that button's like basically what I'll do is kind of like the user can write in a certain text name that they want for the nav button, right, on the first home view controller, and the save button will say like, oh, they want to save this name, and then when they press that, right, we'll update the actual button on the view controller. So yeah, I'm just gonna go and hopefully get this done very soon. So I'm going to create a text field. I'm going to create a placeholder, just kind of describe like, oh, what is this? So you want to enter a new, enter a new like nav button name. And then I'm going to have a text field, have a border style, rounded rect. It's just like the normal borders that you, like when you see a normal default awful one, it's like rounded. So I just want to do that. And then I'm going to add translate. I'm going to add that, obviously the translate auto resizing mask. And so then I'm going to create the save button equals UI button, and I'm going to call it set title, right? And it's going to say like save and dot normal, and then this save button. It's gonna have a target, which is gonna be self, right? And then it's gonna add a selector, like what's the function that's gets called when someone presses this button. And then I'm gonna do touch up inside for the touch register. What kind of touch do we want to register? And I'm gonna write save button pressed. That's the function. And then I'm going to not forget the translate auto resizing map into constraints, and then I'm gonna quickly add all the text fields. Oops. Save button, and I'm going to set up the constraints. And for the sake of time, I'm just gonna write in the constraints directly. So let's see, what are the constraints? So I'm going to say text field dot center anchor constraint. Where's the one that I want? No. really want a constant. And then I'm going to do like the view dot center x anchor, and then do the text field top anchor, right? Constraint equal to a certain constant. It's going to be view dot safe area layout guide. Let's not forget that because we want it to look nice for all screens. I'm going to say 16 constant, and then for the sake of time, I'm just going to copy and paste that and just kind of modify things based on that for the save button. So I'm going to do save button has also be centered horizontally, and the save button's top anchor should not be aligned with the safe area layout guide's top, the view's top anchor, right? I'm going to do text field dot, also forgot a comma, so that's why my things are not indexing. So text field dot bottom anchor. So yeah, so that's like constraint wise, everything's set up. Woohoo! And then I gotta add that target in because I said, and I'm gonna call function save button pressed. And yeah, as you can see, you don't always need sender. I sort of just add that in for. I just add that in, but obviously you don't need that. So right now I'm not gonna add it in. Yeah, and so like what I'm gonna do, right? If someone like, so I would run this, and I also forgot the Objective-C, so, okay, so, yeah, so, like, now we've got that set up. Might run out of time, but it's okay. Hit save button pressed. Make sure everything works. So while we wait for things to run, I'm kind of going to explain, like, what I'm going to do. So, like, right now we've got this set up where, like, on the navigation screen, right, something's going to show up. And you can write in your text field, so let's just click on that, right? I can write in something, whatever, and then I click save, right? And you can see the save button is pressed in the console. So what I want to do actually though, right, is have this like gibberish name that I just wrote be edit this button specifically, the navigation button. So kind of like the way I do this is through delegation. So in this case, right, the delegation is like usually communicating between two view controllers. There's a parent view controller. This is the parent one, the white one, and the child one is this one. So the one that's like farther in to the navigation stack. And so basically how you do this is your view controller should have a reference to your child view controller should have a reference to the parent view controller, but not just any reference. It's gonna be like a reference like a communication like way that you specify. So I'm gonna call this like delegate because that's kind of what it is. It's like a delegate. Actually, so yeah, and I'm gonna specify like the communication. So this is the delegate's gonna be referenced to the parent view controller, and it's gonna be like to kind of specify the communication. I'm gonna specify a protocol. I'm gonna call it save button delegate, and this is gonna be like, and I'm gonna write a method called save button, just to be consistent with my notes. It doesn't quite matter. Save button pressed with name, and then I'll just put a string. So this is a delegate that like the parent view controller is going to implement, and like this works, right? Because like what I want to do is like notify the parent view controller, like, hey, this save button's been pressed. Here's the name, right? That's like basically what I want to do. So I'm going to like so what I'm going to do is have like the parent view controller implement this protocol that says when like basically right when the save button is pressed, here's a name, like, and the parent view controller will implement this function and do what it needs to do, right, with the name. And here I'm going to actually write the code where I notify my delegate. And so that's going to be when the save button is pressed, because that's what I want to do is, or what, that's how I, like, that's the event that I want to, like, notify my delegate with. So, like, that's why, so I'm going to write delegate, delegate dot save button press, and I need a name, so I'm going to do an if let because I don't want to just have an empty name, so I just like text field dot text, and I'm going to put that in the if let name. So if that save button is pressed, if the save button is pressed, right, I'm going to take the text field's text, I'm going to unwrap it. So like basically I just don't want it to be empty. And then I'm going to call the delegate and say, yeah, so the save button's been pressed, here's a name. And now, kind of like to go full circle, right, I'm going to go to the Viewcontroller and I'm going to actually implement this delegate. So basically when I'm doing this, I'm saying that the Viewcontroller implements this protocol. Obviously it doesn't right now because, and when I say protocol, like a protocol is a contract, remember. So everything that you write in the protocol, like whoever implements the protocol must implement all those functions. So it's giving me an error because I haven't implemented the function in the save button delegate. So I'm going to copy that function and write it in my Viewcontroller and then implement it. So that's what I'm going to do. So I write this function, right? So and so this is basically, right, this is going to be called when the save button is pressed, and it's going to pass me the name. So and what I want to do, right, is update the push button's title with the new name that I have for this button, and it's going to be for .normal. So that's like the cinch, but we are missing one thing, right? We actually got to pass in the reference to the child view, reference of the parent into the child Viewcontroller. So I'm going to go where I actually kind of push and instantiate the child Viewcontroller, right? That's in push button pressed. And I'm going to write nav vc dot delegate, and I'll pass in self because I'm basically passing in an instance of this parent Viewcontroller, but not just any instance, right? I'm passing in like the save button delegate. So yeah, so I'm just gonna play this real quick. Hopefully I didn't make any mistakes and it works. And then we can go because I am a little bit over time. So just to kind of see what would happen, maybe I'll call it nav. Okay, whatever, just call it that. And then I click save, right? And it's called Navy now. Very typo. But yeah, that's kind of like how you would do it. And this is a very important concept. You guys should really try and understand this because this is one of like the key kind of things in iOS. And you see delegates everywhere. You will like, and it's just good to understand, you know, how do I make my own delegate? Because, you know, there's app delegate and those methods, right, get called when, you know, your phone starts up. So whenever, like, you know, Apple might have some code that basically, you know, starts up the application, right? And once the application did finish launching, it calls this. So that's why it's kind of like app delegate and all that. So like delegation is a very important concept. So hopefully you guys understand. I will be posting the code and lecture online. But I just want to emphasize it's really like a really good concept to know for if you want to do iOS. Okay. I'm gonna try to stuff a little too much.
You want to stop the presentation?
Yeah, do that. The presentation stop.
So how was your class? Thanks. Yeah.
Thanks. Oh shit. Oh, oops.